Now, a WYFF News 4 sports special.
We've been very lucky at South Carolina.
The South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball team.
I try to win a national championship.
Seeking perfection.
You have to be levels above everybody else because you get everybody's best effort.
The reigning national champions on a trip to the Final Four.
The team is thriving. We're in the Final Four right now. We're getting ready to compete. Everybody is stepping up in major ways.
Looking for back-to-back titles.
We got one goal at the end of the season, and that's to win the championship.
Now, road to the title.
In the pursuit of perfection, South Carolina chasing a second straight national championship this weekend. Good evening from Dallas, where the women's Final Four begins 24 hours from right now. That's Julia Morris. I'm Mark Whiteman, and this is Road to the Title.
Mark, South Carolina making its third straight Final Four appearance, and they are joined this year by three programs who aren't as familiar with the big stage. But South Carolina, no stranger to the spotlight by now. The Gamecocks making their fifth Final Four appearance in the last 8 NCAA tournaments, and their 42-game win streak is tied for the 7th longest in Division I women's history.
But the names around the Gamecocks in this Final Four are changing. No UConn, no Stanford this go around. Instead, it's LSU returning to the Final Four for the first time since 2008, and Iowa, their first appearance here in 30 years, while the Virginia Tech Hokies have never been this far before. Julia, the excitement here in Dallas is palpable. Women's basketball is growing all the time, and matchups like the ones we have tomorrow night, all they can do is help.
All four teams loaded with stars, loaded with All-Americans. But Mark, this South Carolina and Iowa matchup is the one getting a ton of attention heading into tomorrow.
Yeah, no question about it. In South Carolina's Aaliyah Boston and Iowa's Caitlin Clark, you have the last two National Player of the Year award winners. And in the teams, you have South Carolina, the most productive, most efficient defense in the nation, and Iowa, the most productive, most efficient offense in the nation. Something's got to give, and we're expecting fireworks in this Final Four.
I don't think, our players are going to run from the spotlight. I think they run towards it because they want to win a national championship. So we've created habits and approaches to big games like this that will keep our nerves under wraps.
It's really exciting. Just like you said, everybody has been talking about this matchup for a really long time now, but it's exciting that, it's happening in the Final Four. I think it's just a great game for women's basketball. I know there's going to be a lot of people in the crowd, a lot of people watching the game, and so it's just super excited to be in that environment.
Iowa's 8 wins this year against ranked opponents. That is one more than the Gamecocks. But Julia, South Carolina certainly has experience on the big stage. For the Iowa Hawkeyes team, they don't.
Iowa's making its first Final Four appearance since 1993. The Hawkeyes got here because of Caitlin Clark. She's the AP Player of the Year, the Naismith Player of the Year. She's coming off a fantastic performance in her last NCAA tournament game. She became the first player ever to register a 40-point triple-double in NCAA tournament history in the Hawkeyes' win over Louisville, and she scored or assisted on 70 of the team's 97 points. Just ridiculous stuff. Clark has risen to the occasion on the big stage. She can't wait to make her Final Four debut tomorrow, while Iowa head coach Lisa Bluder is also hoping all of her players can contribute.
I'm just going out there and having fun and enjoying what I do. It's not to win an award. It's not for our team to hoist trophies. I think that has all come because we've played with the same, love of the game that we've had since we were young girls.
I honestly just want to take the pressure off of Caitlin. I mean, she just came in here and received all these awards this week. She knows a lot of eyes are going to be upon her, and I want everybody else to step up and help carry that weight for her, because that's a lot. It's a lot for a 20-year-old.
Third in the nation in points per game. And this is a fun fact about Caitlin Clark. 5 different times this season, she has scored more points than the 2022 Iowa football team did in any of its games. Between Boston and Clark, 2 of the sport's biggest superstars and the last 2 winners of the National Player of the Year award. Clark 3rd in the nation in scoring and the catalyst for the Hawkeyes, averaging nearly 9 assists a game, while Boston's numbers have taken a back seat as South Carolina has used a balanced attack from its starters and bench this year, but Boston's still one of the most efficient players in the country.
So Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes are the next team South Carolina has to go through for a second straight national championship. But Julia, there's also a lot more on the line this weekend for the Gamecocks, chasing a perfect season.
South Carolina is 36-0. They've won 42 in a row dating back to last year. It's one thing to be a great team. It's another to be closing in on history. South Carolina head coach Dawn Staley said earlier this week that her team isn't worried about going undefeated. They're more worried about winning a national title. But if USC can accomplish a perfect season, the Gamecocks would be just the 10th team to ever go undefeated en route to winning a national title.
I definitely think, as far as South Carolina's history too, it'd be great to leave that mark, especially our senior class. Just leave a mark and leave that legacy behind. So I mean, that'd be amazing and crazy to think about, especially when we leave here and years down the road, look back and see the mark we left.
And Mark, the Gamecocks can join elite company if they become undefeated national champs.
As South Carolina could become just the 5th program to end the year as undefeated national champions. Texas was the first to do it all the way back in 1985. UConn has done it 6 times. LSU head coach Kim Mulkey, she led the Baylor Bears to a perfect season 11 years ago, while Gino Auriemma's 15-16 Huskies are the most recent to go unbeaten, and only Tennessee and UConn repeated as champs while going undefeated. We've got plenty more to come on our road to the title special, including a behind-the-scenes look at this magical season for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
But when we return, they call themselves the Freshies, South Carolina's senior class on its nickname and all of its success.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us on Road to the Title. And Julia, it is nearing the end of the road for South Carolina's senior class.
They came to Columbia in 2019, called themselves the Freshies as part of the nation's top recruiting class. And Mark, they will leave as Dawn Staley's winningest group ever.
But after they're done hooping, it is their unbreakable bond they'll remember most.
At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want to win. So I think we all have that mentality that this is what we need to do. We need to win. We need to win. We need to win.
Aaliyah Boston had no idea then, before her freshman season, just how right she'd be.
I think when you have a group of females that not only want to win together, but all willing to sacrifice for each other, that makes it a special bond.
The nation's #1 recruiting class in 2019 arrived from all over with great expectations. Boston from Massachusetts, Zaya Cook from Ohio, Letitia Amihir from Canada, and Bree Beal from Illinois.
I mean, we have an unbelievable bond. We've been connected since day one, being able to talk about anything, having that safe space between us, knowing that it's not just one of us going through the freshman life of college basketball, but it's all 5 of us. And we've just been stuck together since.
The nickname has stuck too. The Freshies.
When we first got here, we wanted to start like a group chat with all of us in it. So we were deciding on a name. We just kind of coined it the Freshies. So it's stayed the same in my phone ever since.
It's then walk-on Olivia Thompson, the hometown kid from Lexington, who gets credit for the name.
Olivia Thompson with the 3!
It might be, I'm going to give credit to Liv, because I know it wasn't me. I know it wasn't.
I think Liv, did you come up with it? That's what we said too. I didn't. We can't remember, but it was put in a group chat.
The details are fuzzy, but the success has been unforgettable. 3 for 3 on Final Four bursts, not to mention 129 wins and counting.
A young girl coming in, you don't really know what's ahead of you. Didn't know anything about the tournaments, the winning a championship. So, I mean, just looking back on it and seeing where we started and where we ended up now, it's just, I mean, it's amazing to look back and see.
Those are my best friends. I mean, we have what we call Freshie nights. Whenever we had to just bet, we were like, okay, we need a Freshies night.
We understand how to talk to each other. We understand that we all want the same goal. So I think we just connected like that. And we probably needed some friends, Day 1 in college, like, okay.
I mean, it's still unbelievable to me now. I mean, I really had no idea that I was going to be a part of a legendary group like this.
Julian, it's such a remarkable group. They truly don't care who gets the stats, who gets the credit. It's just all about winning.
And that's what Dawn Staley has spoken of so much. It's this group's loyalty to the program and loyalty to each other. They really wanted to be a part of something special and stick it out together. Could have joined other teams and been superstars, but they wanted to remain loyal to South Carolina.
No question. I think about Letitia and me here. The number 10 player in her recruiting class is a backup on this year's team. So just the sacrifices they've made are just truly incredible. And you talk about the freshies, Aaliyah Boston and Bree Beal. Well, they were both up for Naismith Defensive Player of the Year yesterday.
Yeah, they handed out some hardware at the landmark Reunion Tower in Dallas yesterday. Dawn Staley named Naismith Coach of the Year for the second straight year. That's also her third time winning the award. She's also the only one in college basketball to win both the Naismith Coach of the Year and Player of the Year from her playing days.
Meanwhile, Aaliyah Boston, she repeated as Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. She averages 2 blocks per game this year and, of course, leads the nation's #1 defense. She did not, however, repeat as Player of the Year. That honor went to Iowa's Caitlin Clark. Dawn Staley game planning to slow down Clark on Friday night, but stopped briefly Wednesday to credit her Coach of the Year win to her team.
1, you got a good recruiting class. 2, you got a great staff. 3, you got players who are really committed to the culture of wanting to be great, and they made huge sacrifices for us to receive awards like this, and also to put ourselves in a position to compete for national championships.
Staley is just the 5th coach ever to win Coach of the Year 3 times. And Julia, you could make the argument there are so many players on this year's team deserving of national recognition.
Bree Beal is one of them. Dawn Staley calls Beal the Gamecocks utility player, and she's coming off her best performance of the season, registering a season high, 16 points against Maryland. Well, Bree, you're obviously one of the best defensive players in the country, but in your high school career, you were an outstanding offensive player as well. I want to go back to the beginning of your career when you first came to South Carolina. What were your conversations with Coach Staley like at that time in terms of how did she encourage you to kind of hone in on becoming a defensive specialist?
What's crazy is there wasn't really any true conversations. It was really, she emphasizes, find something you're good at and become great at it. And I think naturally for me, it was defense. It came naturally. It's not something I forced. And I think it definitely took, 3 years to just trust in my offense, let it come along naturally, and be able to, balance both, I would say.
You've obviously grown your offensive game a ton this season. You've become a real threat from three-point range. What was your focus heading into this season to develop your offensive game?
I definitely emphasized trust in myself. I think this season I took the time just to, believe in myself and tell myself that I can knock down those shots and take shots that, I probably didn't take the year before. But, I just go back to high school days, like, I could do all this. So, what's the difference now? So it's a lot of self-talk and a lot of, trust and belief, especially, your teammates telling you to knock those shots down.
Was there anyone else besides your teammates that encouraged that confidence within you?
Definitely my dad. You'll find him sending, clips of high school highlights and stuff. Like, this is like the real Bree, like stuff like that. So definitely parents for sure.
I know your dad was a big basketball player as well. How did he inspire your game?
Just his hard work, coming from, nothing really, just being able to make it into something. And I think that's very empowering, and just being able to make it from my small town, just to be on a big platform like this, coming off of winning a national championship. It's not something you see too often.
What is on your mind heading into these last few games of the season?
Really just being able to finish strong, not leave anything behind. Don't want to look back after my college career and just feel like I could have done more. So really just finishing strong, especially with, the senior class and my coach.
What will you remember most about your time with this team in particular?
Just how much they've turned me from a girl into a woman, how much I've learned from them. A lot of, trials and obstacles and stuff, and how much, they've helped me through them, and which allowed me to stick through for 4 years.
Beal has been so fun to watch this season. Well, still to come in our Road to the Title special, Mark and I will break down our keys to the game.
But when we return, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. We're going behind enemy lines with our sister station in Des Moines to preview the Hawkeyes amid their historic season. Stay with us. You're watching Road to the Title.
We really haven't played against a player like Caitlin, and her ability to have big game. I think for us, we have to take something away. Our ability to score in bunches or ability to, distribute the basketball.
Don Staley's Gamecocks getting ready to defend the National Player of the Year, Iowa's Caitlin Clark, tomorrow night. Julia Clark, clearly the #1 reason why Iowa is the #1 offense in the country, averaging 87 points per game.
She's unbelievable. And to get more insight into what makes Clark and the rest of this Iowa team so special, I caught up with Shannon Earhart from our sister station in Des Moines. Well, Shannon, Caitlin Clark is one of the most electric players in the country. You've been watching her all season long. What would you say is the most dangerous part of her game?
I'd say the most dangerous part is her shooting and her deep three. You can see that she can pull up really anywhere on the court, and seeing it in person, because I've gotten to cover a lot of those games, is just unbelievable. You see her from deep, you see her from the corner, and not only that, but her passing is extremely lethal when she gets the ball and is able to just flick it left and right. She doesn't even think about it. That's what Zanano's told me.
Clark has not seen a defense like South Carolina's all season. What do you think that Clark and the rest of the Iowa offense have to do to take advantage of a South Carolina defense that is so tough?
Well, it has to be everybody contributing. It's not just Caitlin Clark. It's not her show. She needs to be able to pass the ball, and the other players need to be able to knock down the threes from the perimeter. If Iowa gets hot, they're unstoppable. It's just a fact. You've seen them in the back half of the season knock down 3 after 3 and take down tough teams like Indiana is a prime example of that.
No team has beaten South Carolina this season. What does Iowa have to do to be the first?
I think they got to get out of their heads, and they need to just play their game. They need to facilitate the ball well, do what they're good at, and shoot the ball. They need to rebound. If they rebound the ball, they're going to be all right. Their offensive rebounding, I think, is 27% in the country all season. It's not been good at all, and we know South Carolina has size and depth and can really get over the top. So Iowa needs to rebound and shoot the ball well.
Appreciate the perspective from our sister station in Des Moines. The last 2 Naismith Player of the Year award winners will share the court tomorrow night as former Team USA World Cup teammates, and 2 of the very best in the game today, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, share a healthy respect for each other. Boston's counting stats have taken a step back this year because her team is so dominant she's played less minutes, while Clark is the only player in the country to average at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists.
Obviously the Defensive Player of the Year, and had a tremendous season as well, and reigning National Player of the Year. So she's somebody that was my teammate, and I'm super proud of her and what she's been able to build at South Carolina and do. Is pretty tremendous and incredible.
And it's well deserved. I mean, she has been scoring the ball really well, assisting. Like I said earlier, her triple-double numbers are insane, and so I think the committee did a great job.
And Julia, you heard Aaliyah mention it there, but Clark's numbers are ridiculous this year. And getting Iowa back to their first Final Four since 1993, she became the first player in NCAA tournament history to have a 40-point triple-double.
Iowa relies so heavily on Caitlin Clark, but on the other side of things, Mark, South Carolina has gotten better this year while asking Aaliyah Boston to do less on the offensive end. And what stands out about Aaliyah Boston is how fierce of a competitor she is. Head coach Dawn Staley said all season long, all Boston cares about is winning, and she cares about her teammates too. One thing that stands out from this season, after the SEC championship win, Boston gave her SEC tournament team trophy to her teammate, Letitia Amihir, because she felt Amihir really deserved it. Just a selfless action by Boston.
Yeah, and you hear Dawn talk about it. She's won National Player of the Year. She's won every award you can win. So at some point, the numbers don't matter anymore. It's just about getting a second straight national championship. And one thing that makes Boston so special, A, how skilled she is, but also her size, and that's really what makes this Gamecock team so dominant. Boston's height, 6'5", provides her a huge advantage on both ends of the floor, especially when it comes to crashing the board. She's averaging nearly 10 rebounds a game this year, and the same can be said for her backup, 6'7" Camila Cardoso. She's averaging nearly 9 rebounds a game, and Cardoso credits Boston with helping her grow her all-around game this season, while Boston praises Cardoso's presence as saying it takes his team to a whole other level.
Camilla is honestly a major piece that we need and that we appreciate so much. I talk to Camilla all the time. I'm like, you dominate. Honestly, her confidence is just growing, and she's doing a lot of talking, especially on the defensive end, which just continues to help everyone.
She's always pushing me to be better. She's helping me stay confident in myself. She keeps telling me to shoot the ball, to be more aggressive, and that I got this just to stay confident.
Both players averaging 2 blocks a game forms a dynamic defensive duo.
We'll wrap up after the break with one last word on the Final Four and what we think might define tomorrow's game. Stick with us. You're watching Road to the Title.
Should be a big-time atmosphere in the Big D tomorrow night, but before South Carolina and Iowa, the other Final Four matchup, LSU against Virginia Tech. The Tigers making their first Final Four appearance since 2008, while the Hokies are in their first ever Final Four. LSU 32-2 on the year. Virginia Tech, they've won 15 straight games. Their matchup set to tip at 7. Julia, as we wrap things up here, very rarely this year has South Carolina been challenged for all 4 quarters. We'll see if Iowa can change that on Friday night. What are some of the things you're going to be watching for?
I have the 3 Bs: bench play, Boston, and blocks. We start with South Carolina's bench. They've been outstanding throughout the entire season, averaging about 40 points a game this year, and they're averaging 33 in the postseason. With production like that, this bench is hard to stop. Boston, Aaliyah Boston, the star player for South Carolina, always rises to the occasion on the big stage. She's averaging 15 points per game against ranked opponents throughout her career. And my third key, blocks. While Iowa has a prolific scorer in Caitlin Clark, the Gamecocks use their height to shut down opponents. They average 9 blocks per game, the most in the country.
I'm going to keep the Bees moving with boards. South Carolina's rebound margin is the best in the country. UCLA head coach Corey Close said of the Gamecocks, they're the best defense, best rebounding team she has ever coached against. You also have to obviously slow down Caitlin Clark. She's a sensational player. We mentioned it already, the only one in the country to average at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And you have to defend the Hawkeyes beyond the arc. They're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the nation. Should be some awesome basketball here tomorrow. Of course, Virginia Tech, LSU up first at 7, and then the Gamecocks and Hawkeyes to follow.
Mark, I cannot wait to see how all of it plays out, especially for the Gamecocks. Aaliyah Boston versus Caitlin Clark, 2 great teams going head-to-head.
Thank you so much for joining us on our Road to the Title special. For Julia Morris, I'm Mark Whiteman here in Dallas. Hope you have a great night.